Make sure we acknowledge them. And we're also at the Tech Town. Our hosts or speakers are on site at Tech Town. Everyone else is certainly viewing this virtually through the Zoom link. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank all of our sponsors, all our speakers that we have the first half. All right, our first workshop session will be presented by Nadia McLeod, and she's the National Sales Manager, Business Banking for Fifth Third Bank. And she will explain how companies pivoted and were wildly successful in meeting consumer demands during these fluid economic times. She will also provide information on how Fifth Third can help clients develop a resilient business model and gain access to much needed capital to start, expand, and acquire small businesses in any environment. She oversees the strategic planning, operations, sales force, and product development for Fifth Third Bank's business banking division. Her line of business serves clients with annual revenues up to $20 million across more than 1,079 banking centers across 10 different states. She joined Fifth Third in 2019 as Director, Business Banking and Wealth and Asset Management. With over 24 years of impressive industry expertise, Nadia has held critical roles, all with a central focus on building engaged teams that deliver solutions customers want and need. She creatively integrates market-level analytics into her sales strategies to produce a consistently positive banker and customer experience. I'm very pleased to welcome Nadia McLeod. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop your questions as part of the Q&A, and she'll be more than happy to address. Nadia, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So today I'm going to provide a little bit of background on myself, what led me into the banking industry. I'd like to briefly revisit, what it was like when COVID hit for the bank, and then also for our clients and entrepreneurs out there. Then I want to get into that entrepreneurial spirit, the power of it, and what that means. And then we'll talk about ways to win in all environments, and then how we at Fifth Third can help. All right, so let's be honest, right? As entrepreneurs, we know access to capital is a huge issue, particularly for people of color and women. So many times entrepreneurial-minded people, they may have great ideas, excellent business acumen, but we can't actually act on it because we don't have the luxury to devote the time because we're supporting ourselves, our families, and we have that 9 to 5. And the obvious issue, I think, is there's oftentimes no generational wealth, right? So we can't go ask mom or dad or, grandma for $50,000 to get us started. And so I realized personally, at an early age that roadblocks are real for people that look like me. So working in this space, this field of helping small businesses, helping the small business owner realize their dream and seeing the hard work really start to pay off, that fills me up. So I want to applaud all of you for taking the steps to realize your dreams. I've been in the banking industry for a little over 25 years, and the last 10 has been really wholly focused on helping companies with revenue below $20 million, so small businesses. And I'm in awe of small business owners every day. And so I'm truly happy to be here with you today. So let's get started. That's enough about me. I'm going to start by taking a quick lap backwards on COVID and really talk about what defined uncertain times. So March 27th, 2020, right? That was the CARES Act day. So for banks, the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, it was like building a car while we were driving it. So we were learning in real time what the rules were going to be, and we had to deliver almost immediately. So at Fifth Third, we mobilized something like 1,400 colleagues across the company, and we worked literally 24 hours a day to make sure we were ready to deploy the funds that our clients needed. In the end, we delivered $7.4 billion. And we saved 835,000 jobs in our communities that we serve. And I think we can all remember, we heard the stories about huge companies with millions in the bank getting these funds prioritized over small businesses. But we at 5 Third developed a motto early, and it was leave no small business behind. And we meant that. And it led to our numbers, which was, 95% of our PPP customers had fewer than 50 employees, right? So real small businesses. And 85% of our borrowers took less than $150,000. Again, real small businesses. And we also lent 26% in low to moderate income areas. So again, we focused on the community and we focused on the client. So that's where we were in 2020. So what happened? All of our businesses really had to get creative to learn to adapt to the coronavirus. So it was no surprise when larger businesses with strong resources were really able to quickly pivot. So we saw Grubhub, we saw Uber Eats, we saw DoorDash, we saw them blow up. Shipped, Instacart. Who's not used some of or all of these services? Another example would be like a Spotify. They started offering original content in the form of podcasts. And I think in 1 month they had 150,000 podcasts join in 1 month. They pivoted. They started to sign exclusive deals with celebrities and curate these playlists. So their business model was changed forever as a result, in a positive way. Zoom, WebEx, all these online platforms to get us together while we were at home, they all blew up. And honestly, our buying behaviors changed forever, because even now, post-pandemic, if that's what we're in, we're still using Shipped and Instacart and Grubhub and Spotify. But those big businesses were not the only businesses that pivoted and had the hustle and desire to change and get with these uncertain times we were in. So the hustle and the desire of small business owners is truly unparalleled, right? So I want to share some examples of how 5 Third partnered with some small business clients to pivot during this time and win. So one of the examples that I wanted to share, and this is really just to get us thinking differently. Y'all may recall how hard it was to get hand sanitizer, right? You couldn't get it. You couldn't get it. Paper towels, wipes, hand sanitizer, toilet paper. But we had a client who had a really strong relationship with his banker and had a crazy idea and called his banker and said, we make apple cider vinegar. We'd like to pivot and formulate and sell hand sanitizer. That pivot was extremely successful, right? So the business owner thought differently. What can I do to succeed in this time? Where's the gap? What resources do I have? How can I deliver? We also saw some of our dance studios. They weren't deemed a necessity, right? So they were closed. They weren't making any money. We saw many of them convert to an online platform. They started to use Zoom. They started to use social media to advertise. When we had school closures, it wasn't just the kids at home, it was all of the businesses that worked and supplied items to the schools that really started to struggle. So like a cleaning company, if there's no kids in the building, we're not cleaning anything. So we supported pivots for those companies to start to disinfect office buildings. Now there were fewer opportunities, but the margins were higher. So we worked with them to make it work. We had a local vet that saw a need and just converted to 24-hour care. And toward the end of the pandemic, that effort, that hustle resulted in an expansion to a 9,000 square foot facility. And with their learnings from COVID, and they were able to build this facility with full digital check-in and monitoring capabilities. And they did this with an SBA 504 loan and our help, right? So they thought differently about how to deliver to their customers. So all of these clients, had the same thing in common. They worked, they had the idea, they had the hustle, and they had a relationship with their banker. So I know we're all probably, if you're like me, you're sick of hearing the phrase uncertain times, because it kind of feels like Groundhog's Day. It's never ending. We think we're out of it, but then there's, inflation and all these different things. But this is where small businesses are unmatched in resiliency, ideas, and hustle. So companies that learn to plan for uncertainty can better handle disruption and change. And those companies are going to emerge from any situation better than those who can't and don't. So I say just 3 tips. 1, prioritize a contingency and a disaster plan. Hopefully you won't ever have to use it, but you'll have it on hand and you'll have a framework in the event you need to. And thinking through what your contingency and disaster plan could be may actually result in some ideas to pivot now, or even new ideas to deliver your product or service. I would also say keep your core business line strong. Have strategies in place to deal with disruption so that you can keep your production running smoothly. And last, I will say, consider diversifying. So whether it's your product itself or your delivery channel or even the accessibility of your product, just continue to think differently and consider technology always. I'm going to say that again, consider technology always. Invest in your future with technology. All right, so I've mentioned a few times having a relationship with a banker. So let's talk about why that's important and how Fifth Third can help. So I say this all the time if we've met, do not wait for a problem or an issue to arise to speak to your banker. You've got to build that relationship, choose a banker that understands your business, understands your goals, is accessible to you, and wants to help you. Build that trust. Check in with her all the time and be honest. A lot of times we will sugarcoat the truth, or we'll make an excuse. It's always better to be honest with our banker because they're there to help. The COVID pivots that I talked about a couple of minutes ago, that I shared those because those happened because business owners, they were really able to have conversations with their banker who already knew their business and who were ready to advocate for them to get the resources they needed to realize these goals and act on these ideas. So I just cannot stress the notion of having a relationship with your banker enough. All right, and then I also mentioned earlier the importance of access to capital. So I also wanted to share with you how we at Fifth Third, we're committed to increasing capital for minority-owned small businesses. And we go through various programs like the Chicago and the Detroit Entrepreneurs Color Fund. So as part of our Empowering Black Futures Neighborhood program, we have $180 million commitment, and that's really designed to deliver a comprehensive support and lending, philanthropy, investments, and neighborhoods all across our footprint. And this initiative actually includes our G7 neighborhood here in Detroit. So I did want to point that out. I also wanted to highlight another area of importance, which is Fifth Third's really an area of importance to Fifth Third to provide access to capital. So May 1st, we were able to attend the grand opening ceremonies for Adelphi Bank. And that bank is located in Columbus. And it's one of 20 Black-owned banks in the United States and the only one in the state of Ohio. Now, Adelphi's mission is to boost financial equity and build meaningful wealth for seamless and straightforward banking without any inherent bias. Fifth Third was the largest investor in Adelphi in their mission, right? So we are putting our money where our mouth is. So I wanted to point out these great partnership examples about how we're working to improve our communities and how we're working, and we're very serious about providing access to capital to everyone in our community. The other thing I mentioned a few times is SBA. So I did want to highlight some of the ways we can use SBA to help you grow. Many don't know this, but we can offer 100% financing for owner-occupied real estate. We offer 25-year repayment terms, And we'll even give you a fixed rate. And this is on dollars up to $5 million with no balloons. So this is permanent financing, so you can rest easy. You don't have to worry about the balloon. You don't have to worry about the rate going up. So I encourage you to talk to your banker about SBA options. And then outside of the SBA, we're speeding up access to cash through our Fifth Third Fast Capital. And that's a partnership with a company called Foundation. Essentially, we can offer loans between $10,000 and $100,000. Oftentimes there's no collateral necessary, minimal documentation, and you can get your money in a day or two. So again, more ways to get capital into your hands quickly so that you can start to execute on your ideas. And then these final few slides, I wanted to highlight for you the many ways we can utilize the SBA to grow businesses. We can clean up balance sheets, and we can help you acquire a business. So industry examples are trucking, private schools, again, adding jobs to our communities, helping our children, disaster companies, daycares, tool suppliers, funeral homes. We at Fifth Third are truly equipped to take a call from all business owners. And so I wanted to share that with you. So if you're not sure, just pick up the phone and give us a call, or call your existing banker. And with that, I wanted to thank you for your time. And of course, I'm open to any questions you might have.
Okay. Tamika, I want to come over to you, see if you have any questions from the audience. Can you hear me?
Oh, no.
Okay?
Yep, I can hear you. I was just getting ready to respond. So we don't have any questions in the chat at the moment.
Yeah. Nadia, I think as we continue to talk about the challenges of financing, Tom earlier Tom Dallas gave you a presentation about the cost of capital. And, from your perspective, talk about that. And Juliana talked about it as well, the cost of capital. From your perspective, talk to those tuning in or listening, but how can they navigate that particular challenge as well, from based on your experience that you're working with? What can Fifth Third do to continue to provide additional resources, advice, and counsel to those who might be grappling with the cost of capital in today's environment?
So I want to make sure I heard your question correctly. So access to capital and the cost of capital, the cost of borrowing, is that?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, yeah. Yes.
So every business is unique, right? And so there are many different conversations happening right now. One of which, it's not probably the right time to refinance a building because the rate you have currently is probably lower than what you could get today. But if there's a need for an additional line of credit or something to help you buy product or facilitate something in your business that's necessary right now, my advice is still to contact your banker, because the cost of capital is higher than it was, but it's still affordable in many circumstances. So we'll work with you. We'll look at your balance sheet. We'll see what you need, what you don't need, where we can clean up in every other areas, where we can consolidate. And we'll make sure that we look at each individual business holistically. But to your point, when rates are higher, it's not necessarily the environment where you want to borrow a ton of money, particularly with prepayment penalties, fixed rates that you can't get out of. So you want to be smart, and you want to have the advice and counsel of your banker.
Yeah, and as you talk about the advice of the banker, also if you can talk about the informal network, who should be a small business owner's informal network of advisors, so to speak? Who do they have surrounding them?
Sure. So typically, to get started, you really need an accountant, somebody that you can trust to guide you from a tax perspective. You need a banker, and in some cases, you'll need an attorney. Those are the three people that will really help advise you as your business grows. Oftentimes, what will happen is a small business, they'll have an idea, but not a plan, right? Or not fully understand the repercussions of certain decisions if they want to do business in one state, sell in another. And so we often advise to make sure that they have the right experts around them, depending on their business model and idea.
Yeah,
because there's a difference between a business and an idea.
You mentioned the failure, so people have an idea. So when you're doing business plans, when the bankers are doing business plans, you talk about people having, you talk about people having the idea, but not necessarily writing it down. Is there a standard business plan that people should follow? Is the bank looking for a 10-page business plan or a 1-page? Kind of give us your perspective on the outline or the context of the business plan. And what is the bank looking for?
So in a true startup, never owned a business before. My biggest suggestion is to partner with a CDFI. We've got so many CDFIs in our community that are willing to sit down, work with you on your business plan. What does your credit look like? What are you really going to need? So that's really where I would start. There is no boilerplate business plan. They all typically will have the same items in it, but I would say if anybody's out there today contemplating starting a new business, please contact your local CDFI, and they will really help you. Those clients that come to us through that channel are well prepared.
And for those who may not be aware, explain CDFI.
So they're essentially partner groups all around the community that and in some cases they can lend small micro dollars that are funded through pools funded by banks and other sources. But essentially, they will sit down and work with you as in a nonprofit, since they're not going to charge you a fee. And they will walk you through what is your plan, what is your business model. They'll give you templates. They'll help you with projections. They'll help you think through all the things that a potential bank might ask you. They'll really prep you. It's like starting a business with training wheels instead of trying to run right out the gate. So I highly suggest CDFIs. And I don't know, does this team do you have a list or something on their website or a link? If not, you're more than welcome to contact any of our bankers at Fifth Third, and we'll direct you depending on where you live.
Okay. Is there a specific contact information or website that you can go to?
Yep. Just visit fifththird.com, click on business banking, and you'll be able to find bankers. You'll be able to find all the resources you need there, and we'll direct you.
That's fifththird.com. There it is on the website, on the chat room, business banking, click on business banking. Any questions from the audience?
Yes, we do have one. And that question is, what is the state of small businesses in Detroit? Is it positive? And what are your thoughts on that?
So I'll be honest with you, there's no hustle like the Detroit hustle. I'm very bullish on small businesses. I think that the way, and I took a look at, in general, so our Fifth Third customers aren't super rate sensitive. So they don't have a lot of their debt in floating rate. So as rates have risen, they're not necessarily negatively impacted because they're sitting on fixed rate debt. So that's one benefit. Are there still going to be struggles? Absolutely, depending on the type of business that they're in. But we're not seeing any deterioration really in credit at all, which is an indicator that we've done all the things. We've done it right with our clients, advise them appropriately, and I'm not seeing doomsday at all. I'm very bullish on small businesses.
So those small businesses that in Detroit, for example, are coming to Fifth Third, what specifically are they looking for? And I'm talking coming out of the pandemic. I asked the panel earlier, what were the issues 12 months ago? So let's focus on today. The folks who are coming to you and your other business bankers, what exactly are they looking for from the bank?
It's interesting. We're seeing construction more than we had before. So they're expanding. We're seeing larger business banking clients wanting to acquire or merge with others. So we're seeing business acquisitions creep up a little bit. And we're seeing requests for lines of credit. Now, it's interesting though, it seems also that while they're requesting lines of credit, we're seeing a lot of companies that are really not using them once they have them. So it's like they're getting them for just in case, but they're not quite ready to use them. It's more of a rainy day opportunity for them.
as we look at that rainy day opportunity, you know, again, let's look back 12 months ago, let's look at today. There's been speculation that more small businesses are closing versus opening. Is that fairly true? That inaccurate? Give us your assessment in terms of the number of businesses that are opening or planning to open here in Detroit versus those that appear to be closing down.
Yeah, I'm not seeing we're not seeing a slowdown in startups. We're also not seeing a deterioration in credit quality. So I hope, does that answer your question? So I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think that on the outside looking in, you know, the media reports, it seems like the closures get more airplay sometimes than those that are opening. And we have a tendency of focusing on why didn't that business make it. How about let's look across the city of Detroit in terms of the downtown versus the neighborhoods. We know that, for example, Fifth Third has been involved, I believe, in 7 Mile Gratiot at the G7 project. You know, talk about, a lot of times we focus on downtown and Corktown. Corktown is hot right now. Obviously, with the train development that's taking place over there. I was over there not too long ago, see all the development, that's like incredible. But what about what are other parts of the city, the G7? Talk about what Fifth Third is doing over there, the impact that you're having in that particular neighborhood.
Yeah. So the neighborhood program in and of itself was designed not just for us to prescribe what we thought any given community might need, like the G7. Instead, we worked directly with the folks in the community to design what they needed, what they wanted, what they were looking for. And so that's the uniqueness of this program versus others that you might see. We have a team, and I think y'all are familiar with Kala Gibson.
Yes.
He is our Chief Corporate Responsibility Officer, and he actually reports directly to our CEO. And his teams are really charged with making sure that we're doing the right things in all of our communities. So we have people located in the city of Detroit. We've got folks from his team located all across our footprint, and they're really working to drive those relationships with those individual neighborhoods to ensure we're meeting all of their needs with our investment commitments. So whether it's schools, parking lots, lights, you name it, it's really designed for the people by the people.
That's awesome. And I'd like to be able to go to Tamika for other questions. Tamika from the audience.
Yes, we have 2 questions. The first one would be someone representing the Hispanic community and small businesses. Do you have a bilingual department, and who would be the person to contact?
So we don't have a bilingual department, but we do have bilingual bankers. And so if we have a client that requires, whether it's Arabic or Spanish speaking, we do have folks in our team that are ready to assist.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question is, do you have any retail success stories through COVID?
Retail success stories, meaning from I want to be clear that I answer the question appropriately. From partnering with retail or a retail client? I don't think I understand.
Well, they didn't specify, but let's try a retail client that may have utilized your services through Fifth Third during COVID to save their business.
Sure. So like I said, one of the things that we did during COVID is we were very purposeful about reaching out we did an outreach program to all of our clients that we thought might be eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program. And we nonstop made phone calls and actually input the application on their behalf with them on the phone with us. And so I'd say we don't have just one success story of COVID for retail clients during the pandemic. We have 40,000 because we were able to successfully get them the funds in their hands that they needed right away during the most pivotal time to keep their businesses open.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more questions?
No, that will be all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Natalie. We appreciate you, and we know you have quite delays, but thank you for the beauty of technology. Appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. What we're going to do, we're a few minutes ahead of schedule. We're going to invite Alexis addition to come up, and I would like to introduce you to Alexis. She's the Chief Lending Officer for Michigan Women Forward, and she will be discussing funding resources for small businesses. And she's joined over 20 years of both corporate and nonprofit experience, and she is the Chief Lending Officer of Michigan Women Forward. In that role, she's responsible for managing all aspects of the lending function, including business development, expanding the technical assistance programs that we talked about earlier, borrowers, management of the lending team, and managing operational risk. Previously, she was a managing director at IFL. Her leadership included developing and implementing a strategy with the force to expand the Michigan, Ohio, and the education sector. And Alexis' experience also includes also the new manager for America Bank and sharing the bank's African American business outreach initiative team. I'd like to welcome Alexis Dishman from Michigan Women Forward. Alexis. Slide.
Where are you? The green line is showing that you're sharing. So, push right there. And then and cover over the bottom of the shelf. And you'll be able to break it in. Look the band. Great. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here with you today to talk a little bit about different types of financing, and then also kind of talk you through, if you are seeking financing, some of the things that lenders look at. I believe that these things are extremely important as you are navigating uncertain times, to really understand where you are in your business cycle, what type of funding resources make the most sense for your organization, and then also understanding what lenders are looking at from an application process and how we're assessing your organization to provide. I'm first gonna talk a little bit about Michigan Women Forward, our organization, and how Michigan Women Forward supports the community. So Michigan Women Forward is a community development organization. We are also a community development financial institution. We are really focused on expanding economic opportunity for women and entrepreneurs of color across the state of Michigan. We empower the next generation of young women through our growth programs, and then we always uplift and celebrate women's accomplishments in the state of Michigan. And we do that through the Hall of Fame and our Women Up and Celebrate celebrations. Our vision for the state of Michigan is to ensure that we have an inclusive economy that includes everyone, and that all women and girls can thrive and reach their full potential based on an inclusive economy. So I want to start out today by talking about various types of funding. I think oftentimes as individuals, we first think to go to a traditional financial institution for our financing to support the growth and development of our business. But truly, it depends on the business cycle you're in when you're trying to determine where you should go for financing. Every type of financing source is not the correct financing source for you. depending on where you are in your business cycle. So I've listed out 5 different types of funding sources, and of course there are more, but these are probably the most prominent and the most easily accessible at this point in time to businesses. And as we saw during the pandemic, there were more opportunities for certain types of financing available versus what is available maybe now. But we really need to still understand, depending on what's available and where we are in our business cycle, where we should think to go. So the first type of financing that I want to talk about is bank financing and credit union financing. And typically those are at a point in your business where you may be more developed, more established. Typically you would have over 3 years of funding available to, or over 3 years of business experience or business track record when you are seeking this type of capital. And banks and credit unions are held accountable a little bit differently. They're held accountable to the federal government. So their appetite and tolerance for risk feels and looks a little different than some of these other capital sources. So you want to think about, if you have been in business for over 3 years, you want to think about a bank or a credit union as your financing source. The next type of financing is community development financial institutions. And I know in the last presentation, we talked a little bit about community development financial institutions. Community financial development institutions, also known as CDFIs, are organizations that are held accountable to the U.S. Treasury. We are certified by the U.S. Treasury, but we're held accountable to different types of metrics. So the metrics that we're held accountable to are really focused on thinking about how we're investing in the community and how we are serving underserved businesses. And those businesses that, if you're talking to a bank or credit union, may be perceived as having higher risk. So the type of capital and the type of resources that we receive as community development financial institutions enable us to take on different types of risk. As an example, we may have a borrower that may be a startup business. We may have a borrower that does not have the collateral that was expected by a traditional financial institution, or they may not have the credit score that was expected. So what we try to do is provide capital and resources to those businesses that may not be able to access traditional capital at this moment in time based on where they are in their business cycle. But what I'll say is that as CDFIs, what we do try to do is work with businesses to ensure that those businesses are getting on a trajectory through our technical assistance program such that they can access bank or credit union financing. So that is what typically a community development financial institution will do to support and provide capital in the community. And CDFIs support and bring capital at varying levels into the community. So you can have as much as a $10 million project or as little as $2,500. They kind of cover the entire spectrum of risk in terms of the type of capital that they provide to borrowers. The other type of capital that borrowers can consider, depending on where they are in their business cycle, is both private equity and venture capital. In terms of private equity and venture capital, private equity is typically capital that is provided to a business that is a little bit further along, but what is different about bank financing or CDFI financing is when you're talking about private equity, typically that is an ownership interest that is taken as part of the capital that is invested into the business. So private equity, while it can be flexible and it can be helpful, you may not have the same level of ownership that you once had in your business if you take on private equity as capital for your business. And then the other type of business, the other type of financing that's similar to private equity is venture capital. And venture capital, for those of you that have seen Shark Tank, venture capital Shark Tank is an example of venture capital funding. And that funding typically comes in at 0 to 3 years. It'll come in the startup phase where private equity is looking for a little bit larger of a runway. But that capital can come in the form of some shares of ownership, but not at the same level of private equity. And generally, with private equity, we're also talking about maybe a board seat or a management position for those that are investing. And then there are things called Kiva. So many of you may have heard or may not have heard of crowd raising funds. So you could also raise funds through a Kiva loan, which enables you to get friends, family, or individuals that you don't know to put in small amounts of capital to get you to the total amount that you want to borrow. So say you're looking to borrow, $10,000. It may be 100 investors that provide small amounts of money to get you to that $10,000 loan or that $1,000 loan. And Kiva loans, at times, some of them will have very, very low interest rates, and some of them will have a little bit of a higher interest rate. But this is also, Kiva loans don't typically have the same kind of credit underwriting standards as you might see with banks, CFIs, and private equity. There's usually not as many requirements, and in terms of the types of documentation that you have to provide in order to access that type of capital resources. And then there are grants. And through the pandemic, we saw that there were a lot of grant opportunities. Now, while grants are great, you don't have to pay them back. There's no repayment. They're very competitive to get. So oftentimes when you see grants, it's great because it's a quick cash infusion into your business, but it can be very competitive, and there may be smaller opportunities to access that capital, even smaller than private equity, venture capital, or CFI. So there may be a grant opportunity where you get 1,000 people that apply for 25 grants, and it can be very competitive, but it also can be an awesome resource for your business. So I would certainly suggest, if you have an opportunity to access a grant or take advantage of a grant, even if you pair it with a loan through Kiva or a CDFI, it's always great because you don't have any kind of repayment requirement. And of course, during troubling times and really trying to figure out, the unevenness of the economy, when you think about different types of capital sources, grants obviously are always a great source, particularly if you're trying to figure out whether or not you need to, where the money is going to come from, or you're starting a new program, or maybe your business hasn't performed as well and you're kind of waiting for things to turn around. A grant can be a great cash infusion, so you can pay your employees, or you can buy the inventory you might need as you're waiting for time to start back over. The other thing that CDFIs offer that can be really helpful during navigating uncertain times is that CDFIs have a lot of flexibility because they're not held accountable to the Federal Reserve in the same way that traditional banks are. So we offer more flexibility in terms of our ability to restructure and work with our borrowers. So they could also be another great resource for you. If you're a little uncertain as to what's going on with your business, or you're trying to navigate something that has happened to your business. CDFIs also are more flexible in the credit underwriting standards. So sometimes if you've shown historical losses, but you have a plan to move forward, a CDFI can get more comfortable with projections versus some of the other resources that I discussed. Okay, so now you figured out, you said, okay, I know who I want to go to, who's going to help me, who is the best source based on where I sit in terms of that spectrum of or phase of business. I know what spectrum of capital is the right one for me. How do I move forward with obtaining that capital? So I want to talk a little bit today about different things that you need to think about as you are obtaining capital. Typically for many financial institutions and credit unions, they're really going to focus in on your historical financials and not so much forward looking. But all the other sources that I talked about are really going to think about and want to understand what your plan is for your business. So they're going to be looking for your business plan. Particularly if you're starting a business and you're starting out, we want to understand what your marketing strategy is, where your customers are going to come from, who your management team is. All of those components are extremely important and a humongous part of that business plan and helping us to understand the success and the likelihood of your ability to repay. The other thing that we would look at are projections. Typically, we would want to see 3 to 5 years of projections. As I mentioned, if you're starting out or perhaps you're pivoting, you're adding a new product because you need to make a change, projections are imperative to help our underwriting team understand how we're going to get repaid. Because at the end of the day, we really want to just be able to recycle the money and use it for others. We don't want your assets, we don't want to take your business over, we want you to be successful and sustainable. So projections are a component of an application that many of the funding resources will look at to understand how you are going to repay and how you're going to be able to support the business and the sustainability of the business. We want you to be successful. And obviously projections are iterative, it's just a projection, but it is an important component to how we look at a loan application. Personal tax returns. If you're starting a business, it is important for us to understand, and from a personal perspective, if you have some cash flow that you can add, after you cover all your personal expenses, do you have some additional money that you can add to the analysis or to make payments on the loan? Because sometimes while, in a startup, we lay out our plans, the best laid plans don't always work as exactly as planned. So sometimes we have to think differently about how we're going to think about cash flow in that first 0 to 3 years, which is typically for a startup the most the riskiest time, because you're still trying to figure everything out and you're still trying to prove out your business model. If you do have historical financial statements, we typically would look at historical tax returns or historical financial statements. And what we want to do is we want to see that after you have all the revenue that comes in, take care of all of your expenses, you have money left over to make loan payments. So that would be payments of principal and interest. And then we usually like to see, not only do you have enough money to cover those loan payments, but then you have a little bit of a cushion. So that if something doesn't go right and your revenues are down, but your expenses are still where they are, you still have that loan payment, but you have a little bit of cushion to make up for those differences. Or those changes that you didn't expect to occur. So we like to see you have like a little bit of a cushion, not exactly a one-to-one available cash flow to support debt service and payment. We don't want it necessarily to be equal. We sometimes want to make sure that there's a little cushion, a little left over. So we have those unexpected things that occur that we really would expect to occur. And we need to make sure that we have something. If we don't have a lot of money in the bank, we want to make sure we have a little something to be able to make sure that we can make loan payments. The other thing that is important in a financing application is invoices or receipts. So you're thinking about you're buying something, or maybe you're getting reimbursed for something. It's extremely important to provide that information to the person that you're working with. And then how are you using the funds? So we know the source of capital could be, Michigan Women Forward as an example, but how are you going to use those funds? What are you going to use those funds for? And that is the match. So if you say, I'm going to get a $50,000 loan from Michigan Women Forward, but I need $60,000 worth of materials, where is the other $2,000 going to come from? Is it going to come from your personal capital, or is it going to come from a grant, or is it going to come from another borrower? So those sources and uses are extremely important. It helps us make sure that you have enough money to be successful as a entrepreneur, and you have the ability to repay our loans. One of the other things that I didn't talk about here and that's not on here is transparency. So, we all have had challenges. We all had things that have occurred in our lives, and sometimes we may feel a little apprehensive about talking about challenges with credit, about talking about the fact that, a year ago you lost money, but now you've turned the business around. It is much better when you're working with someone to provide you with funding, is if you're upfront and honest about those things at the onset of the application. It is more difficult for us to kind of understand and try to figure out, and you re-explain and over-explain things after we've already done everything. The transparency in providing a loan application is extremely important and mission critical. I think I always talk about, when we are in underwriting with our loan applicants, oftentimes we're dating. So you know how you date somebody, you're trying to feel them out, you're trying to see if this is the right person to be in a relationship with. You might have an argument, you say, how do we get through this argument? And then when we enter a loan agreement, we're married. we're in it together. We're in it to win it. We want it to be successful and we have to work together. So when we're dating, you're not being open and honest and there's not transparency in that relationship, it makes it really hard when you get married. So for loan officers, we kind of think of it that way. And we say, wow, they weren't upfront. They weren't honest with me. How can we get into this marriage? So try to be open and honest. Oftentimes, we are here to support and we understand the unevenness of the business cycle. But it makes it far easier when we have had a conversation about it versus us finding out about it. So I would suggest that while this is not on here, that is one of the most important components of the financing application is transparency and upfrontness. Okay. In terms of this next slide, and unfortunately, it looks like the formatting got off a little bit, but that does say the 5 C's of credit. And I think that at times this has been kind of a mystery. What people looking at assessing a loan application? What are they thinking about in terms of underwriting and making sure that they're comfortable with the type of financing that you're asking for? Now, depending on the source of capital that you are going to, they may view these things a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, everybody is generally looking at these things when they're trying to understand the likelihood of repayment. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about the likelihood of repayment. Are you going to repay the loan? And are we going to have a successful marriage? So the first thing we look for is cash flow, right? So when we talk about repayment, you have to have a way to be able to pay the loan back. So we're looking at your cash in, plus cash out or minus cash out. It really just said minus cash out. Sorry about that. That's a typo. But we're really looking at what's coming in and what's going out and what you have available, what you have left over at the end, in order to repay the loan. We're looking at capital. So for some situations, in a bank, they're probably going to look for you to have some capital into the project, which they're going to look for you to have some skin into the game, as some may say it, or some cash into the project. For others, they may not be looking for you to put anything into the project, but they are looking for you to have had some research. They are looking for you to have educated yourself. Your capital into the project may be human capital, not necessarily monetary capital, but they are looking for you to have something, which is why the business plan is so important, because that means that you have taken the time, you understood, you know what you're getting into, and you've really taken in all the things that are important to making sure that the business is successful. Character. Depending on the financial institution or the different source of capital you're looking at, credit score can be a significant factor. So for some, credit score is something that is reviewed, but it is not a deciding factor. For some, credit score is a deciding factor. At Michigan Women Forward, what we do is we do look at historical payment, we do look at historical track record, but it is not the deciding factor for our financing. What we do try to do though is make sure that we understand the things that have occurred for you personally and how you are now handling your bills. And if perhaps you're still learning, you're still trying to figure it out, we may encourage you to get into a credit restoration program or some kind of credit program to assist you with having better personal financial management decisions. Because one of the things that we know is that personal credit for accessing larger, cheaper capital is still very important. So we want to make sure when we're thinking about sustainability, we are encouraging our entrepreneurs to get into better personal financial habits. And personal financial habits also lead to how you operate and execute on your business. So if you understand how to manage your personal finances, it certainly will help you as you're managing and executing on your business. Condition. So are you entering into an industry that is on a downward cycle? Are you entering into an industry that is on an upward cycle? What's happening with the economy? Is this the right time? I know the presenter before talked about refinancing real estate, and we're at a high in terms of interest rate. Is this the right time to do that in terms of your business? Or also the type of real estate are you purchasing? You say that you want to get into office buildings and office space. Well, we're in more of a virtual environment. Is this the right time for you to purchase office space? Are you thinking about what is happening with the economy and the changes that are occurring? And then capacity, which is your ability to repay. And that kind of goes for cash flow, the ins and outs of your business. Capacity really speaks to organizationally how your business is going to grow and have the ability to repay. So if you thought about the type of debt you're taking on as a $200,000 loan, even when you have your cash flow and outflow, will your business have the capacity to grow to be able to pay that over time? Or is your business on a downward cycle where it does not have the ability to repay over that period of time? Perhaps a grant is a better solution or a better source or resource for you. Kind of weird not having the audience here because I keep wanting to say, are there any questions? Can I please?
Hi, Alexis. This is Tamika. We do have some questions.
Okay, great. I'd love to break it up. Hi,
Okay.
Tamika, I'm ready.
Hi. Okay, so the first question is, during this time of uncertain economic times, how are women business owners faring?
How are women business owners faring? So this is an interesting time for women business owners. I would say that there has been so much growth and evolution amongst women business owners. This has been a prime time for them. There's also been a recognition of the support and resources that are needed for women business owners. So this is certainly a time to take full advantage of those resources and opportunities. The thing I would say is that I still feel there is a hesitation amongst women to take on the capital resources that they need to grow. And it is really important for sustainability for you to do that. So that would be the biggest thing that I would say, that is, you know, as a woman business owner, to really make sure that you're taking full advantage of all the capital that is available to you and all the resources that are available to you.
Awesome. What are the most significant challenges today and opportunity areas?
Yeah, so I would say the most significant challenges right now for entrepreneurs are really their fiscal acumen and understanding of their financials and what's happening with their financials. Without having that information and having that insight, it is very difficult to predict and navigate through uncertain and challenging times. We don't know what the next thing is. We know it'll be something, but in order to really be able to navigate through it, you absolutely have to have an understanding of what is happening with your finances. In addition to that, in order to access the capital, create loan applications and the things that I talked about, you have to understand what's going on with your finances, because when someone comes to you and says, I have a grant or I have something capital to provide to you, you need to be able to talk about what that means, what that looks like. Is that enough? Is it not enough? You know, I've seen often in particularly through the pandemic and through some of the initiatives around racial equity, a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs of color to go into stores like Meyer and have these like big opportunities. Well, if you don't understand the cost of your product, you don't understand the employees that you need to make that product go, then that wholesale contract may or may not be the right thing. Because generally when you have these large contracts and large orders, it's not going to be retail costs or retail that they're purchasing from you at. So you need to understand whether or not, if they're saying they're going to offer you 20 cents for your product, can you make that work? If you typically charge on a retail perspective $1. So you have to understand the ins and outs of your finances. You don't have to compare them. You just got to understand what's going on with them and be able to use them. In terms of, I think the last part of that was opportunity. I believe that right now there is nationally a recognition around the opportunity to support micro enterprise and really grow the economy and grow small businesses to really, particularly in our state of Michigan, to really make sure that, you know, we are growing the engine that makes the economy thrive. So there are resources being placed into the economy to support those initiatives. Small business owners got to take control and take them on, but also be a voice to let folks know that if the resources that are being deployed are not the right fit and are not the right structure, to let people like me know so we can make sure that we're restructuring programs to ensure that the capital is getting where it needs to go.
All right, well, you can continue on for right now. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tamika. So I want to talk a little bit about a startup business financing success story that really occurred during the pandemic. And this is when you think about pivoting, you think about how you can make your business more successful, make your business grow. One of the things that we saw was that during the pandemic, we saw that, wow, while you may be a caterer, large banquets, weddings, all of those things and how we get food and access food changed. And this was an entrepreneur who had been doing an amazing job with catering, had a following, but was not able to reach their clients the way that they had because we were not able to gather the same way that we once did. So they were looking at how can they still serve food and provide food to their customer base while not necessarily relying on people hiring them for large events or weddings or parties or baby showers. How could they really continue to make their business thrive in a different kind of way? So one of the things that they looked at was getting a food truck. And a food truck is great for a lot of reasons, right? So the overhead is not as high because you can go into a restaurant space, you have so many fixed costs. You have lights, you have heat, you have rent. Food truck is a little bit smaller, you may not have to have as many employees, and it's mobile. So depending on where you need to go, what the event is, what the activity is, you can drive it to where it is versus waiting for someone to come to you. And in this situation, it made sense to provide the borrower with the capital to do that. Now, I'm going to call this borrower a startup because they had kind of a proven track record of catering, but they hadn't necessarily documented their finance the way that we would all expect. So, when we started looking, we said, okay, well, you haven't really documented your finances. So we really only have like 1 year, even though they have been operating for like 10 years. So they were kind of viewed as a startup, which is another reason why it's important to have the right financials in place so that you can access the capital you need to grow your business. And one of the things that they had when we started talking to them was they didn't necessarily, they kind of had an idea, had a vision, but it had never written it all down. So they didn't have a business plan. They had it kind of in their head. They had some things down on paper, but it wasn't exactly organized in the way that would help them have a successful application. So what we suggested was that they contact the Small Business Development Center and use that resource as an opportunity for them to create a business plan that would set them up for success with an application. The other thing they didn't have were projections, and we needed to really have a little bit of a better fine tuning on those financials, that 1 year financials. So we worked with the County Aid Society through their small business support services to help ensure that they got that 1 year financials were accurate and in order, so that we could create projections based on that to see kind of where their business was going to go and what the likelihood of success was. And that business plan helped them inform those projections, right? So when you start thinking about who your clients are, what your marketing opportunity is, who your management team is, and how you need to pay them, all those things go into developing those projections. So they had organized their thoughts, they got with the County Aid Society, Michigan Women Forward, along with another CDFI, provided the capital for the acquisition of the food truck and then the build out of the food truck. And then in addition to that, we were able to help them get a grant to support some of the working capital needs that they have. Because as you know, when you're in the food services industry, you're gonna need to purchase food, you're gonna need to hire people. And sometimes when you have those things, you have to purchase those in front of when revenue starts to come in. So this is a real success story for an entrepreneur that was able to kind of pivot during the pandemic and think differently about their business, but was successfully able to acquire the resources and tools they needed to see the ecosystem. And who are we? So Michigan Women Forward, I wanted to make sure that I shared with you, while I talked about who we are, what is available to you through Michigan Women Forward. We work with all entrepreneurs, men and women, regardless of the business cycle they're in. Our loans are typically between $2,500 and $50,000. Typically we go up to 60 months. We do have some products where we go a little bit higher. Our interest rate right now for everybody is 8%, regardless of who you are, what you are, what's going on. In addition to that, we also offer 2 programs that are specifically for women. One is our pitch competition, Women Up and Pitch. We'll start taking in applications in the fall for Women Up and Pitch. We have 4 competitions across the state, one in Southeast, one in West Michigan, one in Mid-Michigan, and then we also have one that's focused specifically on food entrepreneurs, so based businesses. And then we also have our 53 Voices competition, and our 53 Voices competition is sponsored by our partner Fifth Third, and that is really focused on, one, taking out the biases of the application process. So it is voice recordings that we use to select our finalists versus written communication, because we know the education system is not created equal, and everyone doesn't always have a business background and understand business writing. With that program, we offer 3 classes and workshops that our entrepreneurs participate in to assist them. And then we have another recording where we select the top 10, and those people are voted on based on internet based. That is Michigan Women Forward in terms of our funding resources. One of the things that I do want to note is that we typically work with you regardless of whether or not you have collateral, whether or not you have had some credit challenges, and whether or not you're at 0 revenue and you have not proven yourself, or you're at 10 years of revenue, but perhaps you just don't have all of the things that it takes to get traditional financing. And if you want to keep up with us, these are different ways that you can keep up with us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And this is me. You need to reach me, this is how you do so. I am available. I have both my office and my cell on here. My email is on here, and our website is also on here. All right, do we have additional questions?
Yes, Alexis, we've got a couple more questions for you.
Great.
Okay, the next question is, what are the most significant challenges today? No, we already asked that one. When do I use Michigan Women Forward funding versus traditional financing?
Sure. So I would say that Michigan Women Forward funding is typically when you are not able to access traditional financing. So perhaps you do not have, you're in pre-revenue, you have never had any revenue, you have no financial statements, and you can't show the historical track record of your business. That would certainly be a reason why you would come to Michigan Women Forward. Maybe you have a business that has really limited collateral just in terms of the type of business you have. So you don't have a piece of real estate you can offer, you don't have a piece of equipment you can offer. You don't have a lot of clients that have receivables. Maybe you're a retail business and most of your clients are walk up or they come into your store. From that perspective, it may be a little bit more difficult for a bank to provide traditional capital to you because they're typically looking for some sort of collateral as they're providing financing. That would be a reason you would come to Michigan Women Forward. Or perhaps you've had some credit challenges in your past. You know, you've had some things that happened or occurred, or perhaps, you know, your business, you didn't have the capital you needed for your business, and you needed to raise capital using your personal finances, and you got a little behind on your personal debt. That would be a reason why you would come to Michigan Women Forward. We typically work with everybody kind of regardless of credit score, but if you're actively in a bankruptcy, we are not able to work with you, and that's because you're in the midst of debt restructure, and we don't want to add any new debt when you're in the midst of debt restructure.
Do you assist nonprofit or for-profit organizations, or you do both?
We work with both. Yeah.
Okay. Is Michigan Women Forward optimistic moving forward, or are you neutral with today's economy?
We're optimistic, of course. I think in the sector that we sit in terms of the risk tolerance that we have, you know, we have to be optimistic in terms of what we're expecting from business. What we do try to do is think differently about the additional technical assistance programs and resources that we provide, so that as the economy may have some fluctuations for businesses, we're providing resources to help them be successful. So that's one of the ways that we kind of look at the up and downs and the next thing that's coming in the economy. But I don't know how familiar you all may be with Michigan Women Forward, but during the pandemic, we did launch our Resilience Fund, which was there to support, it was grants and loans to support entrepreneurs that were closed, that were trying to figure it out, or that were trying to pivot. So we are here during whatever is happening in the business cycle.
And the last question we have is specific recommendations that businesses should walk away with. then something that they can implement now?
The thing I talked about earlier is the financial. You know, really making sure that you are using some sort of resource, some sort of template to manage your finances and understand what's going on. Whether or not it's an Excel spreadsheet, it's a system called Wave Accounting, that's a free resource online, or it's QuickBooks, or it's a CPA, or it is a controller, or it's a bookkeeper. You need to have some way that you're looking at what is happening with your business from a financial perspective so that you can understand and kind of check for differences that are occurring with your business so you can be prepared to make changes or updates to your business model in order to make sure that you're successful and sustainable. I cannot stress enough the importance of understanding what is going on with your business from a financial perspective. And it is the cash in and the cash out, but it is also predicting what is going to occur in the future based on what your expectations are for your business.
Okay, well, thank you, Alexis. That's all the questions that we have.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in today. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, for those of you tuning in, so we only have the presenter on site, so as he's used to the interaction with the audience, you guys are doing great. But Alexis, thank you very much for your presentation, your discussion. We're welcome here. And what we're going to do is to continue. Again, if you have questions, just please continue to drop them in the Q&A as well. I just want to make sure we take the opportunity to thank all of our sponsors again, presented by Fifth Third Bank, today's session. We also want to thank Tech Town for hosting us for the Speaker One site. We appreciate that. We have a plethora of other sponsors that I referenced earlier as well. This session is being recorded, just to crystal clear, it is being recorded, and it will be being housed at the Detroit Public TV on their website and other channels as well. So if you get a chance to review it, if you missed any part of the discussion, please go back. And just to refresh your memory, this morning we started with Tom Jones, and Tom gave us an overview of the state of the economy. A very important conversation, you know, a lot of questions about whether there be a recession, what is the impact of the debt ceiling going to have on your business. He also talked about this labor shortage, 10 million jobs out there, but only 6 million people are watching. Wow, what impact is that going to have? So those are all things you continue to focus on and look at as you look ahead for the balance of 2023 and beyond. We had a panel discussion, and the panelists started to really unpack this challenge around the theme this year. The theme is navigating your business through an uncertain economy. How do you navigate your business through an uncertain economy? Great advice and counsel from Ian Perry from Fifth Third Bank, Anya Stone from Bill Institute, and also Ray Waters from the Detroit Development Fund. They gave you some important insights, some input, some advice and counsel that you can certainly walk away with. We heard from Ananda McClellan from Fifth Third Bank talking about funding opportunities. Through the bank, how they're currently assisting and helping businesses during these challenging times. You know, a lot of times we hear the news and we're reading business publications, and you know, obviously I do radio and some other things here in town. I write a business blog and things like that. My hope is I try to present the entire story. Sometimes we read whether it's local media, national media, it seems like we might get that one side of the story. And I think Nadia and everybody else in this panel discussion today that you've been hearing from thus far have done a good job of providing the entire story. And we heard from, certainly just most recently, Alexis Dishman giving Michigan Women Forward's perspective. And she said she's optimistic. And as you think about your business and all the challenges that you have ahead of you, ask yourself a question. Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Are you realistic? You know, don't just have one plan. You should have a realistic plan, a step-up plan, and a two-step plan, meaning 2 steps up, which means the most optimistic. You know, back when I started my business, well, actually way when I came out of college in business 2 years ago, you know, we would write a business plan, we wrote our strategy, and it's kind of set in stone. That was years ago. One of the things over the years is your plan should be much more fluid now. It should be transparent. It's okay to change certain things. You still need to have guideposts. You still need to have objectives. And make those objectives, that's your end game. We've all heard of SMART objectives, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based. If anything short of those, that acronym is not an effective goal. But if you measure that SMART objectives, that clearly identifies your end game where you need to get to. So if you left a piece of paper on your desk and one of your employees picked it up, they would know exactly what your objectives are. Right? So that's kind of where we are today, up to the minute. Now what I want to do is introduce our final presenter, the final workshop. And I actually introduce Dr. Marcus Harris of Field Institute. And he's going to focus on a masterclass, entrepreneurship 101 masterclass and tie it into the economy where we are today. Hey, is now a good time to start a business? Right, you know, is it? I mean, that's a question. Is it a good time? So Dr. Harris is a full-time lecturer in strategy and entrepreneurship at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. He is a practitioner scholar whose research interests include social entrepreneurship and social innovation, urban entrepreneurship and micro enterprise development and nonprofit and leadership. He has taught courses in entrepreneurship, management, and strategy for the past 14 years at institutions including Wayne County Community College District, Oakland University, Florence Technological University, and University of Michigan Dearborn. He has also guest lectured and presented his research at various universities and conferences across the country. Dr. Harris currently serves on the editorial board of the Journal of Developmental Entrepreneurship. He also serves as an entrepreneur trainer and coach for various community-based neighborhood micro enterprise development programs in inner city Detroit. He is also, a partner of the Detroit Community Development Financial Institutions. We heard about that today, CDFI Coalition, a consortium of organizations who provide financial assistance and capacity building to a small businesses or to small businesses and neighborhood improvement initiatives. Bottom line, he knows what he's doing. At this time, I can welcome Dr. Marcus Harris. And let's see here, I think we're sharing the screen here. All right. Okay, we'll go back to sharing the screen. Yeah. Right. And PowerPoint slideshow, bear with us here. All right, and I'm going to use this drill right here in advance right here. Okay, all yours.
All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Lee. Appreciate that rousing introduction. First I was like, is he talking about me? Wow, that's a lot of stuff. I guess I should sit down one day. But anyway, thank you all for having me here. As Mr. Lee said, I'm Marcus Harris. My full-time day job is with the University of Michigan Dearborn. I'm a full-time professor there in the College of Business. But today I'm representing the great organization Build Institute, whom you have heard from my colleagues earlier at Build today. So we are presenting a quick workshop here. We like to call it Entrepreneurship 101, our Masterclass. This workshop is actually for those individuals who are looking at considering taking the entrepreneurial leap. So as Mr. Lee mentioned, the theme of this conference today is navigating a business through an uncertain economy. Well, we at Build, we would like to offer with this workshop, how about launching a business during an uncertain economy? If you're thinking about it, you think you've got a great idea, you think you got the next Facebook, you think you got the next great restaurant. Well, we here at Build are here to tell you that through any state of the economy, it's always a good time to launch a business, right? So with that said, we are going to proceed with the workshop. So as Ms. Dishman mentioned earlier from Michigan Women Forward, our previous presenter, like her, I am used to presenting in person in front of people. I know we're in a we're coming out of a COVID environment, where we're online, but I'm still used to interacting with people. So we'll just go ahead and make the most of it. So what I would have done, if we were all in person, I would have everyone give up and give a 30-second elevator pitch. This is a very important skill that all successful entrepreneurs need to know how to do. Right?
I'll do it for you.
Was that okay? All right.
I'll do it for you.
All right. Well, let's go.
All right, let's just give it a whirl here.
Let's
So,
give it a whirl.
My name is Mark S. Lee, and I'm President and CEO of the Elite Group, which is a strategic marketing organization focused on helping small and medium-sized businesses achieve their business goals and objectives and blow through the ceiling. What brings me here is I want to hear from experts like you to help me understand how do I start my business. If I'm thinking I'm starting a second business, and I want to understand how do I do that. And how do I want to change the world, and at least here in Detroit, is I want to make an impact in this city by helping as many people as possible on an entrepreneurial journey, whether they're starting a business or expanding their business and bringing others behind me.
Excellent. Excellently done. The only thing Mr. Lee forgot to do is drop the mic. You've got to take the mic and drop. But yes, that is a 30-second elevator pitch. If you are in a room or in an elevator with a potential investor, with a potential client, with a potential business partner, you have to be able to give this 30-second overview, as Mr. Lee just so eloquently done. So in lieu of having people here in person, I would invite you all in the chat to fill out this information in the chat. What's your business idea? Why are you here attending this workshop? And how do you want to change the world?
Hey, let's hear yours.
Yeah, here mine. All right. I am Marcus Harris, and my business idea is, matter of fact, build social impact. So what I do in my evening job, when I'm not in my day job at U of M Dearborn, I run a program in partnership with Build Institute called Build Social Impact. And what we do at Build Social Impact is we empower entrepreneurs who want to have social mission and social impact as their primary modus operandi, if you will, in terms of operating their business. Can you generate a profit while also creating positive social change in your community? I believe you can do both. So that is what brings me here. And that's what my research is focused on, my work is on, is empowering social entrepreneurs, profit and purpose. All right, cool. So, and again, those of you in the chat, if you want to give this information in the chat in lieu of being here in person, you are welcome to do so. All right, so we won't spend a lot of time at all about me. You all read Mr. Lee already read my my bio, so we don't need to talk about me, but again, full-time professor at U of M Dearborn. I'm University of Michigan graduate, so go blue. Any Wolverines out there? Let's go blue. Finished my doctorate degree at Lawrence Technological University before the pandemic, so that was pretty cool. And I've been around, 20 years of experience. Started my corporate career in information technology, transitioned to nonprofit management and small business consulting, and I'm a lifelong Detroiter. And I'm father to Violet. She's 9 going on 19. She thinks she's grown up already, but so I have my hands full. That is me, yes.
One thing real quick is they cannot put their pictures in the chat.
Oh, they cannot do that. Oh, okay.
Where the button is.
Got it, okay. All right, well, no problem. Just rehearse your 30-second elevator pitches after this workshop. All right, cool. So what I like to do, I like to start these workshops as well as the course that I teach at U of M Dearborn with this slide here. What is an entrepreneur? Who are entrepreneurs? Before we decide whether or not we want to become an entrepreneur, we have to know who entrepreneurs are. Who are they? What makes them tick? What are their characteristics? What are their personality traits, right? And there's a slide up here, as you see on the screen here. There are individuals, both past and present. Are these people entrepreneurs? Fairly famous people, all right? You probably can identify most of these folks by name, but what makes these people entrepreneurs? What makes them successful? Is it that they've taken a risk, they've taken a chance, they've launched a successful idea, somehow they've had a positive impact in the world or on society, right? But what makes these people entrepreneurs? I would argue that what makes every single person up here an entrepreneur is that They took a chance on an idea and they created value in the world, they created value in society, and they created value in the marketplace, okay? So again, whatever the state of the economy is, your job as an entrepreneur is to create value, to solve problems, right? And to create a positive impact in society. That is what entrepreneurs do, and you can do it as well, all right? So we start out with what are some of the basic characteristics of entrepreneurs? What makes entrepreneurs successful? You talk about people like Elon Musk. You talk about people like Oprah Winfrey, right? You talk about people like Mr. Lee, like Mr. Mark Lee. What makes all these people successful? What are the common personality characteristics and traits that makes these people successful? Well, here you go. The research boils it all down to these 5 basic personality traits that makes entrepreneurs successful. First off, you gotta be innovative. You gotta be creative. What does innovation mean? It means coming up with something new and useful, and I would argue cool as well, right? Is your idea new? Is it useful and is it cool? Are you creative as an entrepreneur? Entrepreneurs are creative and innovative problem solvers, right? So whatever your product is, whatever your service is, whatever your idea is, you gotta be innovative. You gotta bring something to the marketplace that no one has ever seen before, right? That's what makes you a successful entrepreneur. They're innovative, they're creative. Entrepreneurs, whether you are profit-seeking or purpose-driven, the bottom line is something is motivating you as an entrepreneur. It can be profit, which is fine, right? Most entrepreneurs, when we think of entrepreneurship, they're motivated by profit, which is fine. But you also have some entrepreneurs, as I mentioned in my 30-second elevator pitch, some entrepreneurs are purpose-driven. Some entrepreneurs are solely launching their businesses because they want to see positive social change in the world, or in their communities, or in their neighborhoods. So whether you are a profit-driven entrepreneur, or whether you are a purpose-driven entrepreneur, the bottom line is something is motivating you as an entrepreneur to take action and launch your business, okay? Very important. Entrepreneurs are also risk-taking, okay? We like to say in entrepreneurship, no risk it, no biscuit, right? So you gotta take risks. And again, some people, we have varying degrees of risk, right? So we call that in entrepreneurial terms, risk tolerance. What is your risk tolerance? How much risk are you willing to accept in launching your idea? But to some degree, you gotta take some risk, okay? But again, as we say in entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs are comfortable in taking risks because they acquire knowledge. Knowledge reduces risk. If I could leave anything with you today, if you don't remember anything else, knowledge reduces risk, right? People like the CDFIs and Mr. Waters that you heard from earlier today, these people take deals, they accept deals where there's low risk, right? And the higher the knowledge that you can bring to the table as an entrepreneur, the more knowledge you have, the less risk you face. That's why entrepreneurs are comfortable accepting risk, because they have knowledge, okay? Entrepreneurs are visionary, absolutely. Entrepreneurs are people who, they just see things that other folk don't see, all right? If I can make it plain, all right? Entrepreneurs, they have vision. They're constantly living in the future. The rest of us are living in the past, but the entrepreneur, she is always thinking ahead. She's always visionary, okay? And last but not least, entrepreneurs are persistent people, okay? We entrepreneurs, sometimes we can be knuckleheads. We don't take no for an answer, okay? If you tell us no, we're gonna keep going until we get to that yes, right? So your persistence as an entrepreneur, I would argue, is the most critical characteristic that you can have as a successful entrepreneur. And then lastly, I believe one of the speakers mentioned this earlier, that successful entrepreneurs surround themselves with people who are smarter than they are, right? That also what makes entrepreneurs successful. As LeBron James would say, if you're the best basketball player in the gym, you need to find another gym, right? So entrepreneurs are constantly looking for, how can I surround myself with people who are smarter than me, or successful than me. That would make me successful as well. All right, so who are these people called entrepreneurs? And again, examine yourself to see if your personal characteristics align with this criteria. Entrepreneurs, again, as we said, they're innovators. They bring new ideas and creative ideas to the marketplace. They recognize and seize opportunity. At the end of the day, entrepreneurship is about opportunity. These are people who pursue opportunities by allocating resources and gathering knowledge, because it's it, to reduce their risk. They recognize and seize opportunity. But what makes entrepreneurs successful is that they not only recognize and seize opportunities, but they also have the ability to convert these opportunities into workable and marketable ideas and actually bring these ideas to the marketplace or to the community. Entrepreneurs are people who add value, they create value, right? Entrepreneurship is a value creation game. How much value are you creating as an entrepreneur? And we will talk more about value creation later in this workshop, all right? Entrepreneurs, as we said previously, entrepreneurs are people who assume risk. They assume the risk. They're openly willing to take on the risk, right? That is associated with launching their idea. And certainly there's financial risk, obviously, right? That the entrepreneur faces, but the entrepreneur, she faces other types of risk. In addition to financial risk, there's career risk. If I leave my good paying 9-to-5 day job and do this thing full time, and I take the entrepreneurial plunge, right? Yeah, that's a risk, right? But in addition to the risk, entrepreneurs also reap the rewards of taking on the risk and implementing their ideas, right? Again, as we said, no risk it, no biscuit, right? So if you want the biscuit, you gotta risk it. So yes, there are rewards that the entrepreneur reaps from her or his efforts in implementing their idea. So that is what an entrepreneur is. All right, I love memes. My students in my classroom, they always tease me, but I love memes. I love being on Facebook and downloading these memes. Here's one of my favorites. An entrepreneur isn't someone who owns a business, but it's someone who makes things happen. All right. Are you someone who makes things happen and you go out into the marketplace in the community and you affect positive change with your idea? All right. That is what an entrepreneur is. All right. What are some types of entrepreneurs? We won't go through each one of these, but again, as Mr. Lee said, I'm also an entrepreneurship researcher. So some of the research suggests that entrepreneurs, they can be divided in these 4 categories. These 4 types of entrepreneurs. So what type of entrepreneur are you? Examine yourself. Are you a personal achiever entrepreneur? Are you that student in class that has to get an A? Nothing less than an A is acceptable, right? Are you a personal achiever entrepreneur? Are you a super salesperson entrepreneur? Are you the type of entrepreneur who can sell ice to an Eskimo, as we said, all right? These are also successful entrepreneurs, salespeople. Are you an idea generator entrepreneur? Are you someone who has 10 ideas for every problem there is in society? You're all constantly coming up with ideas, okay? And then lastly, are you a manager type entrepreneur? Are you the CEO? You have to be in charge. You don't like working for other people, right? You're a manager, you're a boss, all right? So these 4 types of entrepreneurs, the research suggests that you can divide all entrepreneurs, you can put them into one of these 4 boxes. So ask yourself, which one of these 4 boxes or one of these 4 entrepreneur types do I fit in as an entrepreneur? All right, so what is entrepreneurship? We discussed what an entrepreneur is, who an entrepreneur is, but what is entrepreneurship? So again, the research provides us with this definition. You certainly may use your own definition as to what an entrepreneur is, or what entrepreneurship is, I should say. But this is what the latest research says, that entrepreneurship is a way of thinking. Entrepreneurship is a way of acting. Entrepreneurship is a way of being. It's a state of being that combines 2 things. It combines the ability to find and create new opportunities, as we just said, right? Entrepreneurship is about opportunity and seeking opportunity and capitalizing on opportunities. But it combines that with the courage to act on them. Again, that's what makes entrepreneurs so cool, is that they actually act on these opportunities. They actually take the time and take on the risk to pursue and implement these ideas and to pursue these opportunities. Or as my young Gen Z entrepreneurs would say, and my students would say, well, entrepreneurship, it's a vibe. It's just a vibe, y'all. That's entrepreneurship. It's just super cool to be an entrepreneur. All right, so as I alluded to, entrepreneurship at the end of the day, folks, it's all about value, okay? This is what makes entrepreneurs successful. Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, right? Mr. Lee. Entrepreneurs are people who create value. That's the name of the game, guys, right? And gals. Entrepreneurs create value. Well, what is value? Value is the satisfaction of needs. How does your idea, your product, your service, or whatever you are offering to the marketplace, how does it satisfy unmet needs, right? How does it solve problems? So ask yourself about whatever idea you're bringing to the table, to the marketplace, how does it meet people's unmet needs? How does my product or my service satisfy unmet needs, right? So if you solve a problem, you satisfy an unmet need in the marketplace, you're creating value. You're creating value. And your customers and society will reward you as the entrepreneur for creating value, right? And some guy named Marcus Harris came up with some research that said that the goal of entrepreneurship is to create value, not just for yourself as an entrepreneur individually, but your goal as an entrepreneur should also be to create value for your stakeholders. Who are all of the stakeholders? Who are all the people that have a stake in your success as an entrepreneur, right? Be it your customers, be it your employees, be it your suppliers, be it the community, right? Who are all the people that have a stake in your success as an entrepreneur? You need to be creating value for all of those stakeholders. Oh, and your lenders and investors as well. The people that have a financial stake in you as well. All right. So your job as an entrepreneur is to create value for all of those stakeholders. All right. So this data is a little bit dated, it's pre-pandemic, but if you ran the numbers, I'm sure you would come up with similar numbers. Small businesses, big business. The vast majority of the businesses in the United States of America, they are micro businesses. They are micro enterprises. These are companies that have 5 or less employees, including the owner. All right. I'm sure if you ran these numbers again, they'd be very similar. Right. So yes, the large corporations, the General Motors, the Ford Motors, they get all the headlines for creating jobs. But the data shows that the real job creators, the real driver of the economy in this country is you all. All right. It's us. It's small business owners. It's micro enterprises. All right. So what's holding you back from starting your business? What's holding you back from launching your idea? All right. Again, this data, it may be a little dated, but again, if you ran this survey again today, you probably get similar results, right? What is holding you back from launching your idea? All right. Is it fear of failure? Is it lack of funding? Right? You don't know where to start. What are those barriers? What are those roadblocks that are preventing you from launching your business? All right. So think about what those are. And we here at the Build Institute, we are here to help you overcome those barriers. Whatever those barriers are, whatever those obstacles you think are in your path to launching your business, we at Build will help you overcome it. So start with Build. That's our tagline. All right. So ultimately, at the end of the day, what does successful entrepreneurship entail? I just said it. It's all about finding your niche. What is your niche as an entrepreneur? A niche, quite simply, is an unmet need. Again, what are the unmet needs that your idea will fulfill in the marketplace, will fulfill in the community, right? And how is your idea, how does it uniquely fill that gap in the marketplace, right? So ultimately, your business plan will be the basis of your niche, right? What's the unmet need that my product, my service, that my business will bring to the marketplace? So your first job as an entrepreneur and launching your business is, what's the niche? What's my niche? What value am I creating in the marketplace? And what unmet need am I fulfilling? All right, so you feel the niche biker. I believe one of the other presenters earlier mentioned this as well. Value proposition. All right, your value proposition is, as an entrepreneur, is how you will fulfill the niche. What is the unique benefit, right? That's value proposition. What is the unique benefit that you are offering to the marketplace, to the community, right? How can your customers, how can your clients uniquely benefit from what you are providing in the marketplace? That is your value proposition, all right? You also want to put your value proposition in your 30-second elevator pitch as well. Make sure you slip that in there when you are giving a 30-second overview of your idea or of your business. What value am I providing to the marketplace? What is my value proposition? All right, so a real quick chat on business plans. As Ms. Dishman mentioned earlier, our previous speaker for Michigan Women Forward, yes, you still need a business plan. If you are approaching lenders, funders, investors, they want to see your plan. And the question that I get all the time from my students and from other entrepreneurs is, well, Marcus, how long should my business plan be? All right, how many pages should it be? And my response is always quality over quantity. Lenders want to see quality over quantity, right? So don't think about the quantity of pages, think of the quality of the pages. Are you clearly articulating the information and knowledge that you have gathered in launching your idea? That's what they want to see in your business plan, right? Do you have the knowledge, the information, and the data that supports your idea and launching your idea? All right, so really quick, these are the 6 basic sections of a business plan, right? There are thousands of business plan templates. There are thousands of business plan outlines, but we here at Build will keep it simple. We'll narrow it down to these 6 basic sections. First off, you have to have an executive summary. Pretty straightforward, right? This is the first, and I would argue the most important section of your business plan. You gotta have that executive summary, no more than 1 page, short and sweet. Here's my idea, here's the niche that I'm addressing, here's the value proposition, and here's how I'm unique, right? You have to get your lenders' attention, get them interested in reading the rest of your business plan. So if your executive summary is, as I like to tell my students and entrepreneurs, if your executive summary is boring, if your executive summary is confusing, and they have no idea what business or idea you are presenting, 9 times out of 10, they're probably not going to read the rest of your documents, right? So you got to get that executive summary right. This is your 1-page introduction. Next, after you get their attention from the executive summary, you need a business description section. This is where now you can go into detail. Now you can give them the detail on your idea, on your product or service, right? On the problem, the niche, the unmet market need that your business idea is addressing, your timeline to launch. I always advise my entrepreneurs in your business description section, this is where you put your timeline so that your lender or your funder, she or he can understand, hey, what's the timeline to launch this business leading up to the grand opening? So I will know when I need to cut this entrepreneur a check, right? If I go back to their timeline and their business description. So you need a timeline to launch. Next, marketing plan. Entrepreneurs call this section the customer plan, right? Marketing plan is your customer plan. Your lender or funder, they're gonna wanna know, who's your customer, right? Why do they need the product or service that you are providing? What is the size of the market that you are in, right? And then ultimately, what is the size of the target market that you ultimately are pursuing with your idea, right? All that information needs to go in your marketing plan, your market research, the market data. This is where you hit them with the data, right? In the marketing plan. Next, your operations plan, right? How do you intend to operate the business? Where are you going to procure your needed supplies, your materials, equipment, right? Where are you going to get all that stuff from? Okay, that's got to be detailed in your operations, but your staffing plan, right? Mr. Waters mentioned earlier today that one of the vexing issues that small business owners have is hiring staff. People don't want to work, which is absolutely crazy to me, but that's another story, all right? But at the end of the day, you still need staff. You're not going to be able to successfully launch and grow your business by yourself as an entrepreneur. So ultimately, you need a staffing plan as well, all right? That needs to be in your operations plan. Next, your management plan. How do you intend to manage the business, all right? What is the legal form of organization of the business? Is it going to be an LLC? Is it going to be a corporation? Are you going to go solo and be a sole proprietorship, right? So what is the legal form of organization of the business, and how will you manage the business? Who are your advisors, right? Who's going to provide accounting services, legal services, banking services? All this information needs to be in your management plan. Right? Oh, and finally, a bio of yourself, right? You need to, yes, Mr. Lee.
I just want to take a few of your questions.
Oh, yeah, oh, yes, of course, yeah. Any questions? I'm used to having full of people here, but yeah, let's stop. Thanks, Mr. Lee. Let's stop and see if there are any questions at this point. Questions? Okay, we might have lost Tamika there, but that's okay. So when we get her back, we will pause for any questions. All right, then after the management plan, lastly, most importantly, as Ms. Dishman mentioned, you gotta have those financial projections. Even if you are just, there's Ms. Brown.
Yeah,
Ms. Brown, any questions?
Yes, we do. I apologize for that. My screen was frozen.
Well, that's okay. It's technology.
It's great when it works.
I know, right? Yeah, tell me about it.
Okay, so the first question is Detroit a supportive city for those wanting to start a business?
I would say the answer is a resounding yes. I mean, look at this conference, right? You've just seen all of the players in our entrepreneurial ecosystem, from Mr. Waters, from Ms. Dishman, Mr. Lee, certainly Fifth Third Bank. Yeah, we hear this entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the city of Detroit, I would say a second to none. As an academic, I actually have to, travel around the country and presenting my research. And I examine the ecosystems entrepreneurially of other systems, of other regions, and I compare them to right here in Detroit. I would say ours is second to none. All right, you have resources like Build, you have resources like Michigan Women Forward, you have resources like the Lee Group, you have resources like Fifth Third Bank. So where else, then you be successful in starting a business than right here in the city of Detroit? So we have the resources here for you. So I would say the answer is a resounding yes.
Awesome. What industries are growing for startups, and how has this changed since the pre-pandemic?
That's an excellent question. I would say from the entrepreneurs that I have seen, both pre and post pandemic, that we've been able to help get launched, particularly here in the city of Detroit, daycare, yeah. Daycare businesses, maternal infant health businesses. For some reason, these are the businesses that we're starting to see the most get launched here, at least particularly in the city of Detroit. Anything having to do with childcare. So we have actually helped launch a number of entrepreneurs who have launched daycare businesses, childcare, maternal infant health. Apparently, I learned this information from the entrepreneurs that I support. Apparently, there is state funding in this area for entrepreneurs, for profit and nonprofit, who are seeking to launch businesses in the maternal infant health field. So I would say that's one. Certainly, believe it or not, still restaurants, right? We know restaurants are, yes, they are, highly risky businesses, but people are still launching business. People are still launching restaurants. Yeah, still got to eat, right? So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say restaurants, and also quick service food businesses as well, food trucks. We're seeing a lot of food trucks get launched in the city of Detroit. So those are two just top of mind. I'm sure I'm forgetting others, but Those are two that I would say are really hot starters, even post-pandemic, in terms of businesses that are being launched, at least specifically in the city of Detroit.
Awesome, awesome. And then one more question and we'll save the rest of them for the end.
Yeah, no problem.
What percentage of businesses don't make it during the first 12 months?
That's an excellent question. So there's, I haven't seen any specific research that speaks to this, but I hear numbers like, what is it? They say, 80% of businesses, they fail within the first 2 years, 3 years. I've not seen any of those specific numbers, but I guess I would like to frame the question as not so much how often do they fail, but why do they fail? Why do small businesses fail? Right? Forget about the instance of how often they fail, but I think the real question we should be asking is why do they fail? Is it that they lack liquidity? They lack capital? Is it that they lack capital readiness? Right? Is it a management issue on behalf of the entrepreneur? Right? So to me, I think that's the question that we really should be asking is why do businesses fail? Or do they have no identity? Or again, their idea or their product or service, it doesn't solve a problem. Right? My marketing professor would say, you can't be a hammer just looking for a nail. Right? Those are businesses that I see fail, that they don't understand what their niche is. What is the market niche? What is the problem that my idea addresses? So, that's what I
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Cool. Yep. So that was our business plan 101 sort of summary. If you want more information on how to develop your business idea and you're looking to move forward with your idea, as we say, start with build, right? buildinstitute.org. Take a look at our classes and programs. All right. So just to wrap up here, I like wrapping up these workshops and the first class of my entrepreneurship course with quotes and memes. I love entrepreneurship quotes and memes to motivate you all to be entrepreneurs. All right, I love this quote. Some people dream of success, but other people wake up and work hard at it. All right. Walt Disney, one of my favorite entrepreneurs. He says, all of our dreams can come true if we just have the courage to pursue them. All right. So have that courage. So again, these are, as I mentioned in the ecosystem, these are examples of local entrepreneurial support organizations. If you're looking to launch your business through this uncertain economy, these are the local resources that I encourage you to look into. Right? Certainly us at the Build Institute, Michigan Small Business Development Center, they have workshops and online resources for you. SCORE Detroit is another great resource. Certainly, it's not on the screen, but Michigan Women Forward, Ms. Dishman, our previous speaker, we'll give them a shout out. Another wonderful organization or resource, all right, as well as the SBA. The SBA Michigan, they have great examples of business plan templates and examples of business plans, sample business plans on the SBA's website. All right. All right, we'll wrap up with some memes here. Again, we all know Elon Musk, right? Tesla, rich guy. This is him quoted on Clubhouse the other night. The question was asked, what words of encouragement would you give to an entrepreneur? This sounds like Elon Musk. I don't know him personally, but this sounds like him. If you need words of encouragement, don't become an entrepreneur. Right? So it can be a pretty selfless journey, but you got to push through it. All right? Yeah, the meme speaks for itself. If you think investing in your small business is risky, hey, imagine waiting a whole year for a 50-cent raise. All right? Yeah. Staying in a job you hate is hard, but growing a business is also hard. So choose your heart. What is your heart? Choose wisely, my friends. All right? And my favorite meme of all time. If you don't build your dream, somebody else will hire you to build your dream. Right? So go out there and build your own dream, pursue your idea, pursue your own opportunities. Just get started. As we say at Build Institute, start with build. We don't care when you start or how you start. Start late, start over, start scared, if you have to restart again, we don't care. Just start. And you can certainly implement your idea and launch your business in these uncertain times and in this uncertain economy. We believe you can do it. Thank you all for your time. Any questions? Questions?
Yes, we have a couple more questions. So
Yeah.
when you talk about starting a business, why is now a good time to start a business with all the economic headlines that they've discussed earlier with inflation, the cost of capital, a possible recession? Why is now a good time to even start a business?
Well, as I said earlier, that it's always a great time to start a business because there are always problems, there's always issues in the marketplace, right? So there's always a good time to start a business, regardless of, whatever the economy, the macroeconomic conditions are. You mentioned inflation, debt ceiling, and all this kind of stuff. People still have needs, right? Regardless of the state of the economy. People still have needs, they have needs that are unmet, there are still problems to be solved, and there are always opportunities for entrepreneurs, particularly innovative and creative entrepreneurs, to bring their creative solutions to the marketplace to solve these ideas. Or in fact, here, case in point. So we're coming out of the pandemic. If you stop and think about it, there have been much more businesses started during the pandemic than there have pre-pandemic. Think about it, right? Entrepreneurs, like Grubhub, DoorDash, right? I believe one of the other previous speakers mentioned all of the business, the services that have been launched because of the pandemic, right? And entrepreneurs are successful because they solve problems. Certainly, the pandemic presented great problems for us, right? As a society, as a community. So therefore, it provided opportunities for entrepreneurs to provide innovative and unique solutions to these problems. So I would argue that now a better time as any to get started with your business and solve problems in the marketplace.
Thank you. We've got a couple more questions.
Yes.
What specific steps should someone take now to take an idea to commercialization?
Well, I would say, again, shameless plug, start with Build, Build Institute. We have classes and programs and resources to help entrepreneurs, prospective entrepreneurs get started with their businesses. I will specifically say, in addition to that, as I said earlier in the workshop, before you get started, find your niche. I'm always advising my entrepreneurs to do this. Before you launch your idea, what is the problem? What is the central issue that my idea will solve in the marketplace? Who's my target market, right? Who's my target audience? Who will be the folks who will potentially be purchasing or buying this product or service? Be specific with who your target market is. Who specifically has the problem? Who specifically has the unmet need that my idea will fulfill, right? You always start with that, okay? Who's gonna be the customer? Who's the target market? What problem or issue do they have? And then you conduct your market research and industry research accordingly. But it all starts with the target market, defining who your target customer will be, and what problem or issue do they have, and then conduct your research from there.
How important is it to have a board of advisors? And where would you recommend someone who's just starting up? Where do they find advisors?
That's a great question. I would say, well, the first part of that question, how important are boards of advisors? I would say that they're critical, especially if you're an entrepreneur. If you're a new entrepreneur, you're just getting started with your business. Having those seasoned professionals, right? Someone you can bounce your ideas off of as you are in the process of launching your business, I'd say it's priceless. All right, having those seasoned professionals you can bounce ideas off of, that board of directors, board of advisors, whatever you like to call them, I say it's critical. Now, in terms of where to find these, I would say go to events like this, networking, right? Hopefully the pandemic is hopefully behind us and we can now start to gather in person. I would say go to networking events, right? Networking events such as this is where you can find, any advisors, giving your, again, 30-second elevator pitch. That's why that's critical. Again, thank you, Mr. Lee, for giving us an example of a superb 30-second elevator pitch. You want to go to networking events, give your 30-second elevator pitch, get people interested and excited about your idea, and then you'll be able to recruit people who believe in your idea and sign them up to be your board of advisors. So I would say networking events is a great place
Okay.
to start to find advisors.
Awesome. We got just a couple more questions.
Yeah, sure.
The audience says this was a great presentation. You've given great and excellent advice for startups and funding. What cautionary advice would you give?
That is a great question. Cautionary advice. So this is a good one for me. So I hear, again, I get it from entrepreneurs and students all the time that they think their idea is gonna save the world and everybody's going to buy my product. Everybody's going to buy my service. Well, that is a classic trap that entrepreneurs fall into all the time. Just because everyone can use your product or service, that doesn't mean that everybody is going to buy your product or service. Okay, again, I'll say it again. Just because everyone may be able to use your product or service, that does not necessarily mean that everyone is going to buy it, right? So my cautionary advice to entrepreneurs is, again, define that target market, define your niche. Who specifically has the unmet need that my idea is addressing, right? So again, just as if you're a food businesses sometimes fall into this trap, right? That, well, everybody's got to eat. Yeah, that's true, but not everybody's going to eat your food, right? So you have to define who your specific target audience is and pursue your, that specific target. Who specifically has the unmet need that my business idea will address, and not try to market yourself to everyone in the world who's hungry, right? Stay focused on your specific target market niche. So that'd be my cautionary advice. Don't try to, my doctoral chair used to say, don't try to boil the ocean with your research. You're trying to boil the ocean. How about take a pot of the water and just boil that, right? Don't try to boil the whole ocean. You're not selling to everybody.
That was a great response. So this
Okay.
last question is a two-part question.
Okay.
Should someone who's interested in starting a business, should they use a personal resource to start that business? And then with people ghosting, should they hire family members?
All right, great question. Okay, two-part question. So the first part, I believe the question is, should entrepreneurs use their own personal resources when they're
Yes.
launching their business? The answer is a resounding yes. All right, you should be using your own resources. As I believe Ms. Dishman mentioned in her workshop, that the 5 C's of capital. Some say 5 C's, 7 C's, but they're C's. Capital, the 7 C's of credit is capital. You need your own skin in the game, right? You can have the greatest business idea in the world, a well-researched business plan, but if you have no skin in the game, as we like to call it in entrepreneurship, right? What is that investment that you are personally willing to take, right? To take a chance on your idea. Yes, you can certainly get, as we say in entrepreneurship, OPM. You can certainly use other people's money, right? To help launch your business, but no one is going to support you financially if you have no personal skin in the game or personal equity, personal capital that you are investing in the business, right? So it's a combination of both. Yes, you need your own resources, but you need that up front before you can ask other people for their reasons. And then the second part of the question, I mean, there's varying answers to that one, but I'll just give you my own personal thoughts. Don't do business with family. Don't do business with family. That's just it. Marcus Harris's opinion. Again, in business, business can get, Thanksgiving dinners can get really difficult. If you're doing business with family and there's a disagreement over how the business should be ran, Then you gotta go back home and have Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, those can get rather uncomfortable. I personally would, I would avoid doing business with family. That's just me, but if you have the fortitude where you have the ability to separate personal feelings from business, then by all means. There are certainly, husband and wives and siblings, they go into business together all the time. So I would say examine yourself, but as for me personally, separate my family from, from business. That's just me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harris. That was a great response.
All right, you're welcome. All right, and I think that's my time. I'm being booted by Mr. Lee, so, thank you all.
I want to thank, Dr. Harris, excuse me, for his comments. I mean, I think, excuse me, that was outstanding, and he gave you some outstanding advice and counsel. Great questions, and think about, do I have my family members? That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question, but I can ask that question a lot. I look at when it comes to the marketing plan, specific strategy. Thank you. I'm teaching in colleges of business at the university. So listening to you talk is exactly we're talking about here. Listening to you talk reminds me of what I share with my students in that exact same space. But my point is saying that there is consistency of messaging here. As we think about this whole economy situation, there's a lot to think about. Our objective today was to give you an opportunity to listen to different speakers. Yes, the first time this has been a hybrid approach. I know I had a couple people trying to log in. They had a challenge logging in. This is being recorded, so they will have access to the recording a little later. But my point is we want you to walk away with very specific action items. If you're thinking about starting a business, doing these tough economic challenges, I think Dr. Harris gave you some excellent advice. Look at your resources, look at your idea. Is this something that the market is looking for? And a lot of times we're thinking about tangible ideas. You know what? You might become a consultant. Think about your intangible services. I've been doing this for 15 years. Dr. Harris, how long have you been doing yours?
About the same, 14 to 15 years.
So when I started my business, I had a very defined scope, right? But I have evolved it over the years because I wanted to stay relevant. I wanted to make sure that I was doing things that people were looking for, right? And so that's how I've been able to start. And in fact, and Dr. Harris is still here. When I started business, Dr. Harris was 2008. And what was happening in 2008? Do you remember the State of the Union? Yeah, and we have Juliana Perry here from Fifth Third. Remember what was happening? It was tough, wasn't it? And I'd like to tell those stories. So when I started, I had started my business. I was still working at corporate to maintain some type of resource report that you were talking about. But if you remember in Detroit and across the country, we were in a major recession. Some people would say that Detroit was actually in a depression and the rest of the country was in a recession. So imagine me starting a business in 2008. All I had was an idea. I had a few resources. I had a name. I came up with a name. I went to the library every Saturday because I was working full time. And I wrote a business plan. I was a business partner at that time. So when I decided to walk, I did have that business plan. I started networking. And then finally, my big break came from someone that I had a great relationship with, Power the Network. He referred me to someone here in Detroit, and I got my very first big client back then in the height of the recession. So listen to what Dr. Harris said for the last several minutes. You have an idea, get it down. In 2008, we were certainly in an uncertain economy. Let's fast forward to 2023. We are clearly in an uncertain economy as well. If you have an idea, I always tell people, just like Dr. Harris, write the idea down. Yeah. Don't just let it sit there. Don't let it percolate. Look, I get asked so many times, whenever I do public speaking a lot, people will come to me afterwards and say, Mark, say yes. They said, I have this idea. I'll say, what is it? Then the next question they give me, do you think it's going to be successful? I can't answer that question. You get that question out too, don't you? Is it going to be successful? My pushback is, well, I can't answer that question, number one.
Number two, do you know exactly what you want to do? Okay, just get it down on paper. Hey, our beloved Detroit Lions, I like to share this story. You know, obviously, people, you know, there's a lot of hype this year. But my point is, the Lions always have a plan. They always have a plan at the beginning of each season. But for some reason, for the last, since 1957, we have had the opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. You can have the best laid plans, but you can't execute those plans if you don't have the talent, if you don't have a common vision. You're not going to get to that next level. But yet, you look at some other franchises, and yes, I am using a sports analogy right now, but you look at some of the other franchises that have been successful over the years. I always like to use the New England Patriots, not because Tom Brady was a quarterback, but they had an incredible run for a long time. And if you ever studied the New England Patriots back 5 or 10 years ago, they would change their talent. They had a couple constants, yes, the coach and the quarterback, but they would change their talent, but guess what? They will always go to the Super Bowl. So not only did they have the best laid plans, they were able to execute those plans, and people certainly bought into that. I want to point out those two examples because as you are planning your business, now I'm talking to you who are already in business as well. This whole focal point of this conversation today is to focus on the uncertain economy. I want you to go back and evaluate what you're doing. Look at what you're doing. Look at your cost structure. We heard a lot about the cost of capital increasing from our president, Fifth Third, and also Michigan Women Forward. Dr. Harris referenced it as well. And other presenters, Ray Waters and Anya Stone from Bill Institute as well, and some other folks. So go back and review your financials, review them. Make sure that you have a game plan that helps you to address the increase in cost of capital. What are you going to do to address inflation? You know, somebody asked me again recently, and I'm transparent for the most part. I tell you the personal stuff. But let me give you an example of what I did. Is I reviewed my financial statements, and Juliana was sitting here, she would smile when I say this. In the fourth quarter of last year, you know, I worked a credit card, I was getting wind of the fact that the rates were going to be increasing. You know, I was making payments, Dr. Harris, on my credit card, right? You know, my business expenses. And I looked at my income coming in, income going out. I started doubling paying, I started triple paying, because I didn't want to pay that monthly fee that was increasing. So finally, what I did was I bit the bullet. I wrote a check and paid off the entire balance. And so now when I look at my statements, I get the statement in Fifth Third is my bank. They've been very supportive of me over the years, but basically my statement is next to nothing. And I have no interest on carrying over. And not everybody can do that. But remember what I said was I went back and I reviewed my financials. I went back and reviewed all the income that I had coming in and what I was writing out. Now, not everybody can, like I said, just write a check. I'm not gonna say how much it was for. But I would tell you from a peace of mind standpoint, Juliana, and Dr. Harris for the room with me, and for those of you tuning in, my peace of mind has gone from this level to this level. You know, and so a lot of times we get used to using credit, we get used to using other forms of sources of income. And especially when business is good, you gotta lose track of that. I also went back and reviewed all my expenses. And I discovered that I had expenses from 10 years ago that I was just carrying over that I didn't really pay any attention to, and I was just paying them every month. So I went through and eliminated some expenses that I really didn't need. Now, I'm proud to say during the pandemic, I was very fortunate where I was still able to sustain my business. I actually grew my business during the pandemic. And then last year, when I say last year, it's about the fourth quarter, I actually took the time and reviewed. I would encourage you to do that. Another thing that I do, and I think Dr. Harris would agree with, is if you know me, I'm a planner. And not only, you know, do I plan, but I take time for myself. I just sit in my office sometimes, I try one day a week. And I just reassess everything I'm doing. I reassess my business opportunities. I try to look at and figure out where can I get additional opportunities as well. And so I would encourage you to do that, because a lot of times, you know, we think we can rely on our current customers. No question about that. We love our current customers. But then the question becomes, where can I get new sources of revenue? Where can I get new customers? So in my case, I don't have a brick and mortar, I don't have a tangible product, I have an intangible product. Right, I offer a service, I offer a consulting service. And so I think it's important that we continue to understand this. I want you to go back and review what you're doing in the context of the conversation we've had today. I think this has been a very powerful conversation. I appreciate, by the way, all of your patience. This first time we've done a hybrid, and we know we had a couple of technical issues up front, but anytime you do something new, right, we're still evolving, we're still learning. And but I want you to go back and evaluate your current business model. I want you to go back and use your network. If you have a board of advisors, you know, one of the things that my dad taught me was, I love the quote that you put up. People would always ask my father, you all know who he was, and now he was a banker here in Detroit, long-time career, he was a legendary banker. Go back to Detroit Free Press, was a big article about him recently. But one of the things that he taught us, he was at the old legendary bank, National Bank of Detroit, MBD, which is now Chase Bank. But he used to always tell me, and also to my brothers, he would say, and my father got over 20 or 30 national awards. And every time he would get in front of the audience, he would always say this: I'm getting all the acknowledgement, but I want to make sure I recognize my team. I want them to get all the acknowledgement and the praise. He said, number two is exactly what Dr. Harris said. He says, people think I'm smart. He says, I've hired people who are smarter than me. And I brought them into my circle. And that's my philosophy. You know, I get a lot of kudos in this city, in this town, but it's not about me. I try to deflect the praise of other people. And I surround myself with people that can take me to the next level. And if you take me to the next level, I ensure that you get that level of success. Words that you need to take yourself to the next level as well. Because we know that entrepreneurship, whether you've been in business for less than a month, you've been about starting business for 15 years, it's the journey, it's the challenge, it's hard work. You know, there's many a night, I worked in corporate for 25 plus years. I was a corporate executive, I flew on private jets, right? I had a complete staff, I had a private car, I go to Metro Airport, I had to park in I didn't have to worry about parking. I had a private parking space. I had it all. So then when I left corporate, I didn't have any of that. You're talking about going from that type of level of commitment and resource support that I had, and then starting a business. Man, I'm gonna tell you something. Dr. Harris, is that not humbling? Mm-hmm. It's very humbling. All of a sudden, yes, I had to go find parking at Metro. You know, all of a sudden I was putting bags to the carousel. Whereas before I would just pull up to the private hangar and somebody took my bags and I was on the airplane. Listen, I'm not complaining. What I'm saying is it takes an adjustment. If you want to be successful, whether or not you're starting a business, or whether or not you want to continue to grow your business, only you need to figure out exactly what you want to do. Okay? And you know, before I wrap up, I'm purposely, clearly, give you unexpected commentary. Because a lot of times, I do give commentary, but it's so cool to hear other people's commentary that's consistent with your own. And I think as you lead this workshop today, I'm proud to say this is our 9th year, 5th or with us from day one. But I say that to say that the power of relationships. I want you to identify your network, identify those relationships, someone that you can work with. Tamika and her team have done a phenomenal job. You know, she has a wonderful team of RSVP, part of the network, right? And we have these other partners I would identify. I want to identify one more time: Fifth Third Bank, Detroit Development Fund, Comcast Business, Bill Institute, First Independence Bank, Nouveau Cabinets and Countertops, in fact, I'm Detroit. Before I proceed, I want to give you a couple of examples here. You heard me say Fifth Third Bank and First Independence Bank. That's called collaboration. They both see the value of coming together. and working to give you the value that you're gonna create, that Dr. Harris talked about, value creation. You know, on the street, they're together, they do programs together constantly. And when I reached out and talked to Fifth Third, I said, hey, you know what, I think about doing, you know, first independence approach, but you know, Fifth Third's response was to go for it. They said, we collaborate with them on certain programs. That's what it's about, is collaboration. Okay? Number two, I want to highlight new vocabularies and countertops. Probably never heard that business. Martha Rosales in Southwest Detroit has a small business on Michigan Avenue. She reached out to me and she says, I've been tracking this workshop for years. I love what you're doing with it. And I want to be involved with it. I said, you want to be involved with it? What do you mean? She said, I want to become a sponsor. I said, why? She says, this is the type of program I want to fix my business to. And this individual is a small business in Southwest Detroit. It's called Nuvo, Nuvo, Cabinets and Countertops. And she was giving me the accolades, and I turned around and gave her the accolades back. I said, this is why when we do what we do, because we want to support you. And she has been so proud of being engaged with this workshop. I didn't approach her, she approached us, because she wanted to be a fix for having an affinity or a relationship with this workshop. You know, Tech Town Detroit, I've been coming down here for 15 years. And I've been coming down here before this expansion took place. Another example of building that relationship. And when I started coming down here, I was one of a program with the SBA those days. But Tech Town Detroit, we appreciate your support. I also want to excuse me, acknowledge Michigan Women Forward, Tanner Friedman, Strategic Communications, Cindy Fletcher, State Farm Agent, she has an insurance agency out in Michigan. So let's see who else. From a media standpoint, as I referenced, we had so much coverage this year, pre-event, including our media partners from Detroit Public Television. Again, you can check out this event on their website, we post it later. The Free Press, Detroit Free Press, thank you for lending us Janelle Smith today to do the Fireside Chat with Bruce Smith. Tell you what, check out Bruce Smith. He's a dynamite player. He's a dynamo. He's a difference maker in the city. 1,500 employees. 1,500 employees. He's right off of the Southfield Freeway near 96 for the Jeffries or your food crowd. Latino Press, Gulf Central Hispanic News, I thank you both for what you have done. They came in first-time partners to help us to get the message out. But as we begin to wrap up, I just want to say there will be a survey coming to you later today or whenever next couple days, hopefully later today. And we're just going to ask you to fill it out. And believe it or not, we review all the surveys. We take that input and it helps us to direct what we should do the subsequent year. Hopefully next year, which will be our 10th year, we'll be back 100% face to face again. Hey, we know the energy of people in the room interacting together. Okay, so our hope is next year we'll be back 100%. But yes, when you get the survey, please take your time and fill it out. So with that as a backdrop, I just want to thank all of you for your time. We know that entrepreneurs are busy. The reason we don't do a full day event, we know that you're busy. We know that you want to get back to your offices or you want to get off the Zoom call and get back to work and make your phone calls. I'm one of them, right? We all have demands on our time. That's why we keep this a half a day session. So with that, as we wrap up, I want to thank all of you for taking water, making a great day, making a great week. By the way, I gotta do my shameless plug. You can check me out at 9 a.m. the Superstation. On Saturdays, we do the weekly wrap up every Saturday from 2 until 4, and every Sunday in the conference room with Mark S. Lee. Check that out. I'm not doing a show this weekend from Memorial Day. I'm going to have a great Memorial Day weekend. If you're going to National Policy Conference next week, safe travels up there. But I will say this, I had the opportunity of interviewing the undisputed middleweight champion of the world from Flint, Michigan, Miss Clarissa Shields. And she's that will be airing this tonight, tomorrow night, somebody else will show 9:10. They're back on my show next weekend. She's flying at Middle City, Jamaica. Famous club. All right, with all that, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. Have a great day and talk to you soon. Appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Very good.